Hey, I'm Professor Owen Anderson, and I teach philosophy and theology. I'm watching this interchange between Charlie and a bunch of liberal students, and he's just been hanging them up on what is a woman. They can't define it. It basically comes down to a woman is someone who says they're a woman. The next student that comes up, his name's Parker, and I want to step you through this because Parker makes some really colossal blunders and pretty well steps into blasphemy. Parker makes a category mistake that you want to avoid. And as a theologian, I'm going to help you step through that and not make what we'll call the Parker mistake. So I'm going to start it. I'll pause it as we're going to make some comments.
Okay. All right, Parker, what is a woman?
A woman is an adult human person that has a desire to be in accordance with a particular set of social and cultural norms that are typically associated with the female sex. Now, define a man. Define a man.
You're looking at one, XY chromosomes and A.
Okay, but does God the Father have XY chromosomes? Okay,
See, Charlie starts to laugh just because it's such a colossal category mistake. It's sort of mind-boggling that Parker makes such one and he's willing to be on YouTube, on the internet, making that mistake. And so let's see how Charlie steps through it. But the first thing you see in the mistake is that he says, is God the Father a man? Well, no, God created man and then male and female. So men and women are created by God. God's not one of them. That means we're going to have to come back to the notion of what makes God a father in just a moment.
We literally have a religious
he's
topic
a father and he's him, but he's not a man.
We have a religious
Wait, so a man is someone with XY chromosomes, but he doesn't have XY chromosomes, yet he's still a man. He still uses preferred pronouns.
Actually very
So he keeps pushing the same point, and it's kind of like this tactic of you drive at the person a whole bunch, you don't let them answer, and then as they're not answering, you say, "See, so you can't answer." So it's a very immature debating approach that Parker has. He hasn't yet kind of grown up and had adult conversations. That aside, he says that if God's a father, then he's a man. That's a fundamental mistake. God's not part of the creation. God made the creation. And Charlie comes to that point in a moment that God is incorporeal. God is not made of matter. He doesn't have a body. That still leaves this other question. In what sense is God the father and not a mother? So we'll come back to that in a minute. Let's watch Parker stumble some more.
In the original Hebrew, Adonai, do you know what Adonai is? It's the Hebrew word for God. It's actually genderless, but in the scriptures, they use he, right? And they use the masculine. Jesus Christ came to earth as a man, not as a woman, not as genderqueer. But let's go back to the
So this is an important point. This is what I said a moment ago. God's not one of the creatures. God determines what a man or woman is, and that's what Charlie's asking them. What is a human woman? Not what is a divine father. But all of Parker's argument hinges on the idea that human fathers are men, always. Therefore, if God's a father, he must be a man. It's a simple logical fallacy. Unfortunately, Parker hasn't been trained in logic.
Man, right? Well, because all fathers are men. Well,
first of all, there's a trinity. So God the Father is neither man.
So all human fathers are men.
He is omniscient, omnipotent. He is all being on top.
So why do you use he?
Well, I did not. The scriptures do. You could use woman. You could say her.
Now Charlie goes to the scriptures, which makes sense. And he clarified earlier the word Adonai, and that the scriptures clearly do use father and him. But we could also go to creation and general revelation and how we understand what the word father and what the word son means, which is what we're going to do.
You could use him, but the way that the language is structured, again, it is God the Father is so above gender. It is so above any of our understanding.
And why use him?
Glory. Yeah, so that's the point here is Parker's made a category mistake. And that's the Parker mistake that you want to avoid. It's the heart of all idolatry. Thinking of God as if God's like the creation rather than God determines what the creation's like. All idolatry does what Parker does here. It says, well, the creation's this way, so God is that way. Instead of asking, I wonder what makes God a father since God's incorporeal and God created and determined men and women. Charlie's question has been the whole time, what's a human woman? Not what is a divine woman? What's a human woman? And Parker thinks he's done a gotcha here with Charlie. Instead, he's made himself look pretty bad.
Standing. Again, because you have to make a choice, either he or him or her in the original scriptures. Let's go back to. I'm happy to get
fathers aren't men and boys.
So I'm.
And that was a weird one. No, fathers aren't boys. I've never met a boy who's a father.
Fathers are not men and boys. Not men or boys.
I'm sorry.
Some fathers are not male.
No, of course they are. I'm not.
Wait, so God the Father.
So again, humans Yes, which is Charlie's question. What's a human woman? But Parker keeps making that category mistake. Okay, so a divine father. Instead of saying, well, what does that mean? He's not interested in that. He wants to just try to use this as a gotcha moment for Charlie. Instead, falls on his face.
Male?
Hold on, God the Father. So where do we get God the Father from? What Greek word?
From your scripture.
Well, from Abba, right, which is a very close personal term.
You're not answering my questions, and you're bringing up random language that doesn't matter.
Well, it actually does.
No, it doesn't.
This is so strange. Charlie tries to help him understand Hebrew and then Greek from the scriptures, which is what Charlie's referencing. And then Parker says, oh, that doesn't matter because he doesn't understand the languages.
Let me get down to the root of it
because he's not a man. You know he's not a man under your worldview. Yet you still use his preferred pronouns. You still call him a man.
Christ is a
man. You don't do that with trans people because you're transphobic. That's why.
And that's a key move here. You'll always see this when a person who's advocating for this sex philosophy gets cornered. They call you a transphobic or a homophobic person, which is they take it upon themselves to psychoanalyze you. They're not your doctor, but they just determine, well, I can psychoanalyze you, and you have a mental disorder which keeps you from being kind to others. And I've never heard Charlie advocate to be mean to people that he disagrees with. And I certainly never would. I encourage everyone to be nice to other people, regardless of what their sexual philosophy is. It's not a fear. Homophobia or transphobia is a fear. There's no fear involved. It's a disagreement about the nature of reality, which Charlie's trying to clarify here. And Parker's not understanding. He wants to just say it's just fear. And since God's a father, but not a human, you could go that way too. How's that? Some fathers aren't humans. That'd be a little bit closer, and that's true.
I got it. But Christ is a man. I'm happy to get into the sexuality and
Before
gender
incarnation, he's not.
The Trinity, okay?
Before incarnation, there's no penis, there's no XY chromosomes, there's no small.
But he is the eternal son of God, not the eternal daughter of God. And we'll talk about that again. This is something we need to understand.
A second, let's think about it. If that's correct, how is it then Jacob saw the face of God?
Okay, so if there's
hold on. If there was not before the incarnation, how did Jacob see the face of God? How did Jacob wrestle with
characters
God?
can have faces without biology.
How did Jacob wrestle with
Now, that's such a strange answer. Like there's just a face floating, wrestling with God. Or the next one Parker tries is to make it just a metaphor, like he internally struggled with God, versus no, this is a theophany. There are a few theophanies in the Old Testament prior to the incarnation. And there is a body wrestling with Jacob, and it also does symbolize something as both.
So okay, do you think that he has a body?
Well,
or was that a figurative notion of wrestle?
That's a mystery of the scriptures. I'm not.
So on that point, Charlie, here's what I'll tap in. He says here in a minute here.
Well, it is. I'm not here to debate theology. Can we go back to talking?
All right, so tap me in. Bring me in. I'll be the theologian for you, Charlie, and I'll handle this because it's a really simple theological point that Parker thinks he's making something out of. We've already clarified. Not all fathers are humans. God the Father is not a human. God's the creator. He is the one who determines what a male and female is. You can't switch between them. But God's a father for this reason. To say God the Father when we're praying, our Father who art in heaven, we're saying that God is eternal, no beginning, and God is the originator of everything else. God started the whole process off. He began creation, and nothing existed before that besides God. In that sense, he's the Father. Mother religions, goddess religions, worship an eternal cycle. They'll say that all things existed from eternity. There was no creation, or there was a beginning maybe of this cycle, but there were previous cycles forever, all the way back. There's no creator father. And so that's an essential and important difference that's made in the Hebrew scriptures and continued in the Christian scriptures. All the nations around Israel worship the goddess. And so Israel's making a distinction here, and God's revealing to them the distinction between him and those idols, which Charlie's fallen into. So God is a father in the true sense of the word. It's not that God's a father because he's analogous to us. We're fathers when we're human fathers because we're analogous to God. He's the standard of fatherhood and reality. In fact, C.S. Lewis said this: God is so masculine, everything else by comparison is feminine. And that's exactly the imagery that the scriptures use. In the Old Testament, Israel is spoken of as God's wife. And Israel committed adultery when Israel fell into idolatry, and God divorces Israel. And so that's a very important imagery. It couldn't be reversed. God's the mother, and this is her husband. That picture doesn't work. The way God established things beginning in chapter 1 of Genesis, chapter 2 of Genesis, chapter 3 of Genesis, that order between male and female is then used to picture God and Israel. And then it's continued in the New Testament, where you have the Son of God, Christ and his bride, the church. All of history ends with a marriage ceremony of Christ and his bride. So those can't be reversed either, where instead Christ is the wife and the church is the husband. No, it only works that one direction, given the meanings that God established. But Parker's about to give up on meaning. Let's see how.
Actual biology, you keep trying to pivot because you know this debunks you.
Well,
what biology does your God have?
So what biology does God have? God created biology. He's not himself determined by biology.
Our Lord.
No, I meant before incarnation.
Well, to be honest, I don't quite know, and I don't think the scriptures
so you don't know what a man is?
Well,
you can't define what a man is?
It's a little opaque. Again, you're looking at a man.
But your video, the largest video on TikTok is, what is a woman, 20 million views? You don't know what a man is in your own worldview?
I said you're looking at a man.
So Charlie's already defined what a human man is. Parker wants to know what is a divine man, and there isn't one unless you mean the incarnation. But as both of them have said, the eternal Son of God, who also had no beginning, wasn't incarnate before the incarnation, so didn't have a body before that. The incarnation is when that happens. So why say son? Why not say mother and daughter or father and daughter? Well, we already learned why father is the image that makes sense compared to the goddess. But son makes sense there too. And you should note that if the father is eternal, had no beginning, then the son is also eternal. That's why I say eternally begotten, had no beginning. Because before you have a son or a child at all, you're not a father. A 10-year-old's not a father. I wasn't a father before I had children. You become a father. So if God the Father was always a father, then there was always a son. Didn't have a beginning. And John 1:1 affirms that. In the beginning was the Word. It was already there when everything else was made, and everything that's been made was made by the Word. And the Word, the Son, is the one who makes God known. And that's what Jesus reaffirms in the incarnation. I'm making God the Father known to you. So that's why it's a relationship father and son. And the Father directs the Son, sends the Son, and the Son submits to the Father. So that imagery is the true nature of what is a father, what is a son, what is a husband, what is a bridegroom. We are like that insofar as we are analogous to that, but God's the reality. And God doesn't have a body. So when we ask what is a male, a human male, we need to give some physical characteristics, even if we also give personality or spiritual characteristics. And Charlie's already done that.
Right?
Wait, but God the Father doesn't meet that criteria.
Am I looking at a man?
Yes, you are.
Okay, good. Just make
a man that's beating you in a debate right now.
Okay, that's fine. So let me ask you a question, though. So do you think that anybody can become a woman?
I think that anyone who meets my...
And here's where Parker descends into meaninglessness. It's very sad. And my prayer for Parker would be he would come back from blasphemy and idolatry and repent of those before God. Because otherwise his life will just be characterized by this same meaninglessness which you're about to witness.
As a woman.
What's your criteria again?
Again, adult human person that has a desire to be in accordance with a particular set of social and cultural norms that are typically associated with the female sex.
Can society ever be wrong?
Sure, but like it's a desire to be in accordance with a set of social and cultural norms.
Can I become black if I wear blackface?
No, because it's not a desire that you have to be in accordance with a particular set of social and cultural norms. What if somebody wants
to be black?
Because race is defined phenotypically based.
So it's really interesting because now he says race is defined physically, but male and female aren't. And I would think, given the gradations of skin color, it'd be just the opposite. If you gave up one of them as physical, it would be that one versus male and female, which are so clearly physical differences. The number of persons who are born otherwise, like someone being born with no arm or not being able to see, are such a small percentage. We recognize, okay, something went wrong in the development, but a developed human is either a male or a female. So it's interesting that Parker here is about to lose, about to get tapped out.
Expression to other people.
But by some standard, you're judging that.
Do you think there's a phenotypical expression of someone who's white and someone who's black? Like I see you're white because of your phenotypical expression.
Right.
But Charlie just said, what if I wear blackface? What if I walk around with paint on? Won't that be enough? Isn't that just like wearing a dress?
But do you think, but Rachel Dolezal that said she is black and culturally black, is she black?
Does she have phenotypically characteristics we would associate
Define
with
phenotypical. I'm not sure what that word is.
It's going to be the expression.
So
of
melanin
a particular
content on
characteristic.
skin?
Yes.
Okay. So she could pass as a black person.
Wait, so she doesn't have the melanin content?
She's borderline.
No?
Heavily.
Okay, so then she's not black.
Okay, so you're able to say who is black and not black?
Yeah, that's what's so interesting. Like it is based on these physical characteristics, and yet someone might pass with having those physical characteristics, and Parker still says, no, it doesn't count. He doesn't even see it. Now, this is an important point about mental darkness. when you've mentally become so darkened that you're not able to understand what it means for God to be a father, that God's not a man biologically, and then that doesn't do anything to Charlie's argument, you're going to make other blunders like this. And he's just about to lose his grasp on any kind of meaning at all. Let's watch.
That's how we define it in society. No shit.
Okay, got it. So, but is there an objective definition of who is black?
Wait, language is all subjective.
Oh, language is all subjective. He's Humpty Dumpty. Have you read Alice? Alice meets Humpty Dumpty. And Humpty Dumpty says he just makes up words to have meanings, whatever he wants them to mean. And Alice points out, if you do that, then we can't communicate. There has to be an objective standard of meaning so you and I can talk. And he says, no, I'm just going to make them up as I go. My words mean whatever I want them to mean. So at this point, Parker's given up on on words like God. God could mean whatever he wanted to mean. Father, male, female, man or woman, race, white, black. None of those mean anything anymore. It's all subjective. He won't even be able to debate anything anymore. But here's the sad part is that when you're in that darkened mind, you don't even realize it.
Professionals indicate it's subjective.
Language is all subjective.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh,
Every
really?
word you just used was created by other human beings that are engaging in conversation.
No, now
I think it's created by.
So the language is created. We can study the history of English, let's say. The concepts that language refers to aren't created. So there's the English word to, and there's the concept of to-ness. The English did not invent to-ness, Parker. Oh, it's just a simple 101 mistake. You just wish you would have had a logic class in college.
But even then, it's still subjective.
But now we're getting somewhere.
God's a subject.
Now we're getting somewhere. Is the word and the value behind murder objective or subjective?
Well, I think morality is subjective. But
Yeah. Bye-bye, Parker.
Objective
it is.
too, because it comes from God.
That's interesting.
Wait, does it come from God or independent of God?
Well, no, of course it comes from God. It's
If
transcendent.
that's true.
It's
That's
transcendent
subjective.
human beings.
That's
No,
subjective. Yes, it is.
No.
If it comes from God, it's specifically subjective. If it comes independent of God, then it's objective.
No,
What you just told me
God,
is
God
also
objective
compatible
morality.
with moral anti-realism.
So let's go back to the Ten Commandments.
You don't understand
right?
meta-ethics.
Well,
Parker, he's had like he's read Wikipedia, he's gone on the Stanford Philosophical Dictionary online and got a few terms. He thinks, yeah, I'm going to go in there and get him. And it's true, Charlie may not know what those words mean. But to say that God is subjective if he creates. Now, I'm not a divine command theorist myself, but it's not a subjective view of metaethics. God's objective to the creation. And it's an eternal standard because God's eternal and it's unchanging. Subjective is changing. It had a beginning. It's based on whims. It can change and start again. So come on, Parker.
Hold on a second.
What does subjective morality mean? What does it mean?
Subjective morality
Define
means
it.
that it comes in everybody's own opinion, their own form, not
dependent upon a
objective.
stance.
Again,
God is a stance, and that's the truth of morality.
So if let's believe, do you believe in the
Yeah, the other students are like, all right, Parker, you're done. You lost. Now, Parker, think about what he's lost. He's lost the ability to have any meaning. Words mean whatever the person speaking them thinks they mean. He says a woman is someone who wants to be a woman based on the current cultural standards, but you can't do that with race because of physical characteristics. But you can do it with the physical characteristics between male and female. He fails to understand that God's not a male, but God is the origin of male and female. He doesn't understand why we say God the Father, not God the Mother, or God the Son and not God the Daughter. He hasn't understood that God is said to be married to Israel and then divorces Israel because of adultery, which was in their idolatry, and that Christ is the bridegroom and the church is the bride, and that all of history ends with that marriage. So these are really fundamental things. What Parker wanted to do, his strategy is pretty obvious, is try to say, Charlie, you say that we don't know what a woman is. Well, you don't know what a man is because you believe in God. God's a father. Aren't all fathers men? But you don't think he has a body. That's a strategy. And it just completely fails. And then along the way, he makes these other worse mistakes, compounding it. So when he's in that condition of a darkened mind where he's simply confusing basic categories, he won't be able to make progress in thinking about anything else. It'll be a very confusing life for him. And that's why I said earlier, my prayer is that Parker would come out of this. But if he doesn't, the reason I made this video is that others would see that and learn the fear of the Lord. When your mind confuses God and the creation, this is the outcome. But wisdom begins in fearing God. And so I'm glad Charlie did this. But, Charlie, quick message. in the future, hey, bring me in. Just, come over, tap in the corner. I'll get in. I'll take care of the theology and philosophy stuff. You handle the politics. And I think it's going to be a great time. So thanks for joining me and watching this video.